So let's talk today about food. Let's talk about diet, right? This is a fruit festival, and I want to make sure that if nothing else, when you leave here, and some of you are already clear about this, but I want to make sure everyone's clear about what I believe, and I want to say that what I believe, they're just my beliefs. They are at least partially supported by 40 plus years of study into nutrition. I started at the age of 14, 44 years now almost. I'll be 58 soon. And over the last 27 years, I've worked with more than 10,000 clients from all over the world. So I'm going to be talking about what's actually worked and what I found consistently, works for virtually everyone. In fact, it's interesting because we've had a bit of a laboratory of sorts. And when I say that, what I mean, for 12 years, I ran a 4-month internship program. And the internship started out with a 21-day water fast, and then 7 days of refeeding like any other client would do with a 21-day fast. And then we closed, and they had a month of intensive education with me, and then we'd open again at the end of that month, and they would spend another 9 weeks there meditating, exercising, and eating with me every day. They never left sight. I mean, we'd go as a group. Once a week we'd go out, but we were in the middle of nowhere, like here. They couldn't just walk somewhere. So they were there all the time. They had all their meals there. And what we found was that the 127 people who did this program over those years, every single person thrived. It didn't matter what their blood type was. It didn't matter where they came from. It didn't matter, any of those things that people think, oh, it's different for you. Everyone thrived living on fruit and salad only, nothing else. We have no nuts and seeds, okay? We have no spices, we have no oils, we have nothing else. And I want you to understand why that is, okay? So let's approach it from this direction. First of all, humans are one of approximately 25.5 million animal species on the planet, okay? That's the current estimate. Every species has its natural species-specific diet. And it's important to understand this because it's so common. So you might have heard this before. Years ago, I was at an organic market outside of Washington, D.C., where I used to do a lot of my shopping. My last 15 years in the U.S., I bought 100% organic produce. And the only exception was a monthly durian, which I couldn't get organically. Once a month, we'd have a durian party and a feast. And that was the only thing that wasn't organic. But everything else was organic. And one day I'm in this organic market. They had a rack, this revolving rack where they sold raw cookies and crackers, little packaged things. There was almost never any product there, and I never saw anybody buying it. But it was, they didn't take it away, so I figured they must be selling something. And one day, they had a little bit of product, and I saw a woman standing there in front of it looking at these things. So I went over to her and said, do you eat a lot of raw food? And she said, no, but I eat a lot of other stuff. And I'm thinking, well, it's one or the other, right? And then she looked around and, furtively, and she leaned in close and she said, I eat a lot of meat, right? And I said to her, and I didn't say anything to her, in fact, but I must have had a horrified look on my face because a moment later she said, what's wrong with that? And I said, you don't have the digestive physiology of a meat eater. And she took a step back and she said, you don't even know me. Okay? So I've studied physiology at the university, and we all have the same digestive physiology. Okay? Some people don't realize this, but animals have different blood types, just like we do. And yet, every gray squirrel eats the same food. Every red fox eats the same diet. Every bald eagle eats the same diet. Every rainbow trout eats the same diet. Okay? There are not different diets for different individual members of society. If it appears that there are, it's because, or that our needs are different, it's because of the damage we've done to our bodies. Okay, what we're used to, like that. But what's optimal, this is not a popular opinion, I get that, right? Because a lot of people want to believe, yeah, that works for you, it doesn't work for me, right? In fact, I just got off a consultation with the guy that's coming to fast in April. And I've worked with him 3 or 4 times before. He's already referred a couple of people to me. When he arrives in April, he'll have been 6 months at this point. Let me say it this way. Right now, he's 4.5, almost 5 months, 100% mono fruit meals and simple green salads. Nothing else. He's made no exceptions, he claims. This is what he's doing. And he made sense. He had some issues he wanted to heal. Right? He's dealing with some fairly serious issues. He's now so much better than he was before. And I remember about 3 weeks in, he emailed me after our first consultation where we went through the whole thing. He said, okay. 3 weeks later, he emailed me and said, I can't believe how amazing I feel. It's incredible. This is amazing. Now he's saying, I'm having some symptoms and I'm not sure, and people say this. And this is what happens. What most people find is there's a honeymoon period, right? You change your diet, you feel incredible because you're not eating all the crap you used to eat. You've got a lot more energy because the stuff is much easier for the body to digest, and people feel great. And then 4 to 6 weeks later, there's finally enough energy for the body to begin detoxifying. And people don't feel so good sometimes. And some people think, oh, this doesn't work for me. And that's why they think it. Because they run into this period where all of a sudden the body's able to start cleansing, and they're thinking, oh, this doesn't work. But it's working perfectly. This is exactly what the body needs to do. Okay? If you've been on the planet for 20, 30, 40, 50, or 60 years, and everyone, I think, but Austin has done that, then chances are good there's some garbage in there that needs to come out. Right? Now, let me get those of you who have fasted with me here or at home via Skype, as Eric has done, how many of you have found that there was some toxic crap that needed to come out of your body? Raise your hand if that's been the case. Okay? That's all the people here that have fasted with me. So they've all experienced this. Okay? This is what happens. Even people who think they're doing really well are often really surprised by how much cleansing and healing happens. And I'm remembering, I spoke at an event once, actually several years in a row. There was an event outside of Buffalo, New York, way back 15, almost 20 years ago maybe. It was fantastic. It was a weekend camping event. It was held 2 or 3 years in a row at a sculpture park. And it was gorgeous. And we all camped out there. And I would speak 2 or 3 times, 4 times over the course of the weekend. And one day, I'm approached by this group of people. They come to me together and they say, we just heard your lecture. We have a raw group that meets every week in Manhattan. We want you to come speak. And so that's what happened. And one of the members of the group was a woman. Some of you, I'm not going to mention her name because she hasn't given me permission to mention her name, but she's published several books on being a raw vegan. And she was a member of the group. And she wound up, as a result of that first talk, she wound up coming to a full-day seminar that I gave the same week. And then the next year, she did another full-day seminar with me. And after the second one, she said to me, listen, she said, I don't really expect too much to happen. She'd been eating fruit and salad at that point for 20 years. Okay? And she said, I think it was 20, if I remember right, I think it was 20 years, 15, 20 years. And she said, I don't expect much to happen, but I'm going to come fast with you for a few weeks because I think it'll be a nice break from my job and a nice break for my family. And she came down and she was blown away by how much detoxifying was happening. And she went home and spent like a month traveling around giving lectures about how powerful this process was. Okay? We've seen the same thing with virtually everyone in a similar situation. When I met Eric 17 years ago at the Portland Raw and Living Food Festival. A group of people, same thing. There was a group that said, hey, come to Seattle, right? Nora wasn't there, that event where we met, or if she was, we didn't meet. But she agreed to take on organizing events for me in Seattle. So they invited me to Seattle. Nora arranged the events. And the first night I get there was a potluck at Linda Reeves' house. And someone taps me on the shoulder. I turn around, and there's Nora, who I'd never met before. And she says, hey, I'm Nora. And we wound up working together 4 or 5 times. She organized events. It took me 16, 17 years, 15 years. I think it was 2 years ago she was here. So it took me 15 years to convince her to come fast. And I would talk to her, I would see her, and she would say, I'm following your diet. Why do I need to fast? I couldn't convince her, right? It was necessary. She finally came. It was amazing what happened. And I don't want to, we're going to talk about fasting another time, but the point is, these are two important parts of the process of getting your health to an amazing level. And they both really need to be undertaken. You can do one, you can do the other, until you do them both get your body clean and then consistently eat optimally, you're not going to feel and function as well as possible. Now, how about all this other stuff? Why fruit and salad? So first of all, ask yourself how many species on the planet use condiments? 0. I think it's not 0, it's 1.
Until recently.
And we're it, right? And we're it. And anyone know how that started? Why did people start flavoring their food?
Probably with canning.
With canning? Well,
probably because they're starting to congregate in urban zones and had a less, they didn't have their normal crops, they weren't growing their own food.
Okay.
So a lot of this stuff had to be shipped from afar, and they didn't have spice and all this nice nearby, and they probably started this process of drying, powdering.
Well, in fact, you sort of just touched on. I'll tell you exactly what happened. I actually know how this happened. The first thing, let me ask you a question. Have you ever prepared a meal? Maybe back when you were still eating cooked food, if you don't anymore, or whatever. If you still do, you cook a meal for someone. Someone sits down. Before they taste the food, they pick up the salt shaker and they cover it with salt. Have you had that experience? And you're going, you're ruining it. What are you doing? I just put all this love into this. What are you doing? They know exactly what they're doing. They're doing exactly what they need to do. Because when you're addicted to salt, you can't taste anything else. Salt has such an overpowering taste, you can't taste anything else. And what happened was, humans began to salt meat to preserve it. We didn't have refrigeration yet. And so they used salt to preserve meat. And the taste of salt was so powerful that nothing else had any flavor. So they started putting salt on everything. That's how it happened. Okay? Anyone know how they started using pepper? They started using pepper to cover up the flavor of rotted meat when the preservation process didn't work so well. And all they had was rotten. They would cover it with pepper so they couldn't taste the rotten flesh. Okay? But think about in nature. Okay, do animals flavor their food? No. They don't have to. Okay, now this might sound crazy to you, but I'm willing to bet you if you go talk to one of the cows that we passed yesterday on the way to and from the beach and said, when you wake up in the morning, what do you think? They're like, dude, I've actually had this conversation with cows. The cows tell me, I wake up and I'm going, dude, I've died and gone to heaven. I'm surrounded by grass. Okay, because they think grass is the most delicious thing on the planet. Okay? Actually, the truth is they think ornamental plants are more delicious. When we were in Panama, they would walk right through the barbed wire fence and eat our ornamental plants. Even tastier. But you get the idea, right? The idea is that every species on the planet is naturally attracted to whatever food its body was intended to eat. Now think about walking out into nature, okay, wherever on the planet. Okay, everything available in nature, what are you naturally attracted to? The colors of fruit. Yeah, fruit. We humans have from time immemorial painted pictures of fruit. Right? Why? It's beautiful. It appeals to us. Okay, that's part of the strategy of the fruiting plant is these bright colors that catch the eye. We see it. We talked. If you did the permaculture walk, you remember we were talking about the star fruit. The green star fruit is almost impossible to see. It looks like the leaves of the tree, on purpose, because the tree doesn't want you to eat it until it's actually ripe. And when it starts ripening, it turns yellow. Now you can see it. It stands out. It's easy to see as it becomes more and more ripe. It becomes this strong orange-yellow color, like Alex's shirt. Easy to see. Okay? That's the idea. So red, yellow, blues, purple, these are colors that stand out. Orange, we see them. That's the idea. How about the smell of the fruit? Does it appeal? Absolutely. Okay? Has anybody ever walked by like a field of broccoli and said, oh man, the smell makes my mouth water. No, of course not. Okay? These are not things that we're naturally attracted to. We don't need to flavor our food if we're eating the foods our bodies need. Okay, if we're eating the foods our bodies were intended for. Now, let's say cows eat grass, but can we make them healthier by giving them something else? They probably need some superfoods, maybe some goji berries, right? Some spices. What do you think? No, they're going to do best when they eat the diet that their body is adapted for, and their body's adapted to grass and little green plants. Our bodies are adapted to fruit and soft, tender leaves. Okay, nuts and seeds, relatively difficult to digest. Now, are they important to us? Well, they could be. I mean, there might have been times in human history where there was a drought or a flood or a fire, and there's no fruit available. It's gone. What remains intact in the shell for a long time is the nut. And so if we could find nuts, they're very dense with calories, energy. We don't need very many of them. Okay? But I do an exercise. I won't take you through the whole thing here, but where I have people imagine you've injured yourself, you're lying on the ground, you can't walk, you fast for several days, then you feel better, you get up, you're hungry, okay? And here you've got these choices. One of the choices is macadamias. How many of you like macadamia nuts? I like them. All junk food is essentially fat and sugar, right, and chemicals designed to make you addicted, etc. They do that on purpose. But it's the fat and the sweet. Macadamias, highest fat content. They've got sugar as well. These are tasty little things, aren't they? Okay. How many of you have ever tried to open a macadamia nut without having a macadamia nut cracker, special nut cracker for the job? They are hard as rocks. Okay. Imagine you're hungry and you're in nature. You got a macadamia tree and it's full of nuts. And you're going to find two rocks, and try to open these things. It is not easy. And let's imagine now that right next to the macadamia tree, as we have here, we've got a mango tree. Okay? We've got a full orange tree. We've got a banana that's loaded with ripening bananas. How much time are you going to spend trying to open the nut if you've got all this readily available fruit, which is calling to you in a way the nut never can? Okay? You want to keep this in mind, because I understand, and I went through a phase years ago where I was thinking, yeah, but I need superfoods. I've got these things heal me, and these things do that for me. Let's be clear. Again, I'll say it this way. I'll share a funny story with you. I think it was in Belfast, Ireland, 10 years ago maybe. I was giving a lecture, and I said to the group, there's only one thing on the planet that can heal your body. And someone raised their hand and said, you? It's not me. I can't heal your body. Okay? I'm a Reiki master. Some people call themselves Reiki healers. I don't call myself a healer. Your body heals itself. Every organism is self-healing. You worked in hospitals for how many years? Voltaire said, the art of medicine consists in amusing the patient while nature cures the disease. Okay? The organism heals itself. Okay? The reason that fasting is so powerful, the reason we see so many incredible things with fasting, is because it's the best way to get out of the body's way so it can do what it needs to do. But nothing else we do can heal us. So be clear, there is no food, there's no juice, and I know, right now everyone's drinking celery juice, right? It heals me. It does not. The body heals itself. Okay, there's no exceptions. And this is never going to stop. There's always going to be some new fad. Why? Because most people aren't willing to take responsibility. They don't want to change anything. They don't want to do what's best. They want a magic bullet. They want someone to say, just add this thing to whatever you're doing and you'll be fine. Oh, thank God. I can keep eating pizza and hamburgers and just drink some celery juice and I'll be healthy. What do you think? Is that going to work? It's never going to work. Okay? There are no substances that heal us. We want to be really clear about that. Okay? Yes, the body needs nutrients. Okay? But we get our nutrients from eating the foods our bodies were intended for, and that's really all we need. Now, there are things, maybe 10 years ago, 10 years ago, there was maybe it's still happening. I don't hear about it as much, but everyone was eating cacao nibs. Anyone remember that? When everyone was eating cacao nibs, people would say to me, yeah, but I don't feel very good if I don't eat my cacao nibs. Same with wheatgrass juice, same with their green juices. I don't feel good if I don't drink my green juice or have my, my wheatgrass. Yeah, I understand completely, okay? Some of you may not know my whole story, and I'm not going to bore you with it now. The major motion picture is coming soon, I think. I'm expecting them to call me any day now. But I realized I was sick when I realized one day I was addicted to coffee. I was going back for my fifth or sixth cup before lunch, and I thought, I'm addicted. And I'm not willing to be addicted to anything. So I'm not having any more coffee. Within about a week, I realized how completely exhausted I was. I've been propping myself up with coffee. I was later diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome, but I didn't know that until I stopped using coffee. In other words, when I didn't have my cup of coffee or multiple cups of coffee, I didn't feel very well. Okay? Now, I love watermelon, and those of you who have spent some time here, Peter's not here. Peter's eaten with me probably 100 times in the last 15 or 16 months. He can tell you I eat watermelon probably 4 or 5 times a week when I'm here. But a few years ago, the longest I've done so far was 11 weeks touring Europe, lecture tour in Europe. I don't think I had watermelon once. I still felt perfectly fine every single day. I don't need watermelon to feel okay. Okay? Anything you're eating that you don't feel okay if you stop eating, it's stimulating you. Does this make sense? Just like coffee. Okay? Just like coffee, tea, wheatgrass juice. Now, why wheatgrass juice? Why green? Why do these things stimulate us? Because we need tiny, tiny amounts of protein. Tiny amounts. Getting enough protein, I'll admit, is difficult. In order to get enough protein, here's what you have to do. You have to eat enough calories. Okay? Yesterday, I got all my protein from mangoes, lettuce, avocado, and tomato. Pretty much it, right? I mean, many days for me, all my protein is coming from watermelon and papaya. That's it. Okay? And I stay pretty strong. No problem. We don't need concentrated proteins. We don't ever need them. In fact, the research in 2013 finally proved something I've been teaching now for 25 years, and that is that when we eat more protein than we need, we age and die faster. Okay, there's no benefit to us. It just makes us age and die faster. Now, why do we all believe we need to eat protein, have to worry about protein so much? I mean, how many of you have had this experience? This was my experience. I went from being vegan, I went from eating conventionally to going vegan. Vegetarian first. And my normal friends, all my friends said, how are you going to get enough protein? And then I went vegan. All my vegetarian friends said, how are you going to get enough protein if you're not eating dairy, right? Eggs. Then I became a raw vegan, and all my vegan friends wanted to know, how are you going to get enough protein? No more tofu. No more textured vegetable protein. How are you getting enough protein? Then I became fruitarian. 27 years ago, my friends said, how are you going to get enough protein? It's easy. I eat enough calories to satisfy my needs. And it's no problem whatsoever. Okay? It's no problem. Why do we believe what we believe? Well, about 100 years ago, the United States Department of Agriculture went to try to figure out how much protein humans needed to be healthy. They wanted to they created their first guidelines, the RDAs, right? Recommended daily allowances. And they were looking at protein and various vitamins and minerals, and they were trying to figure out how much protein do we have to eat. So what do you think? How do you think they figure that out? Let me ask you this. What would you do if you wanted to figure, let's say you had no information and you wanted to know how much protein human beings should eat to be healthy? What would you do?
Do a test study.
You might do a study, maybe take a bunch of test subjects and give them different amounts of measured amounts of protein and see who did what. They didn't do that. Okay, what they did was they looked to see how much protein a rat needs to be healthy. Okay, raise your hand if you're a rat. Come on, get them up, come on. Okay, we're not rats. Rats grow much faster than we do. They need much more protein than we do. Now, once they figured out how much protein a rat needed, they wanted to be absolutely sure, confident that everyone was going to get enough. So they doubled it. And then the lobbyists from the meat and dairy industry came calling and said, hey, do me a solid, right? Do me a favor. And so they doubled it again. And so the RDAs for humans for protein are literally 4 times what a rat needs, and a rat needs way more than we do. Okay? We do not need to be consuming a lot of protein. Okay? Excess protein shortens your telomeres, and the shorter the telomere, the shorter your lifespan. Okay? By the way, how do we lengthen those telomeres? There's 2 ways. There's one most effective way.
Calorie restriction.
Sex is the less effective way. Sex lengthens telomeres. Okay? So we're going to have dinner naked tonight. And then whatever happens, happens. All right? You raise your hand if you're in. No, okay, I guess not. Never mind then. Never mind. Sex is one way to lengthen your telomeres. Okay, it's good for you. The other way to really lengthen your telomeres, the most effective and profound way is by fasting. Okay, fasting lengthens your telomeres. It's literally making you younger. Okay, we'll come back to that tomorrow. All right, telomeres, the little tails. If you're not familiar with telomeres, they're little tails in your DNA. And what research has shown is that as we age, they get shorter. And as they get shorter, we age. So the things you do, excessive exercise, shortens your telomeres. Exercise is good for you. Excessive exercise, not so much. Okay? There are various things that we do that make these telomeres shorter, and that means we are aging faster. Fasting is the most effective way to reverse that. We're literally becoming younger in every measurable way. All right? Well, again, we'll come back to that. So you want to be really clear. We do not ever have to worry about getting enough protein. And why green juices make us feel better, make us feel more energetic, is because greens, on average, are 50% protein. When you take a green juice, you've got concentrated protein. And excess protein stimulates you. It's a stimulant. Now, what happens when you use a stimulant? What happens when you drink coffee? Does coffee make you energetic? Does it give you energy? Let me say it that way. Does it give you energy? It can't give you energy. What does it do then?
Overstimulates your adrenals, causes adrenal fatigue.
It stimulates your adrenals. So you know, here's what was happening to me 35 years ago, okay, after I graduated from college. I get out of bed, and within half an hour, I was exhausted. Right? And I'd have a cup of coffee and I'd feel okay. Here, my energy was here. I'd drink the coffee and I'd feel more energetic because the caffeine was stimulating my adrenal glands, so I felt energetic. But I didn't have energy. So what happened is you feel energized and then you wind up feeling more depleted than you started. And it's a vicious cycle. And your adrenal glands get worse and worse, weaker and weaker. And this is going to be true with anything that's stimulating your body. It could be cocaine, it could be speed, it could be excess protein, okay? It's going to leave you in the same place. Now, some stimulants are more powerful than others, but none of them are good for you. Do they have a place? Well, in the 30-some years since I realized this and gave up coffee, I have used coffee 2 or 3 times. I've used it on purpose as a drug. I remember once I had a weekend of events in Toronto. I had a key staff member. One of us needed to be on site. And he told me on Wednesday, I was leaving on Thursday morning to drive to Toronto. He told me on Wednesday that he was resigning and was leaving on Sunday morning. I had a full day seminar on Saturday in Toronto, which was from Washington, D.C., 7-8 hours drive? I finished up at 6 o'clock. By 7 o'clock, I'm finishing goodbyes and getting in my car. I've got to drive all night to get there before he leaves on Sunday morning after working all weekend teaching on my feet and without sleep. And at around 2 o'clock in the morning, I thought, I'm going to stop and get a cup of coffee so I don't die. Because coffee and overstimulated adrenals are better than death, in my opinion. Okay? Okay? But, what I try to do now is not put myself in a position where I have to choose between death and overstimulation. Okay? I try to get enough sleep on a regular basis so I can do what I need to do without using stimulants. And I haven't used any stimulants. Now, this happened a second time where I was speaking down in Norfolk, Virginia at this all-day event, and I had an appointment back home the next morning, and I'm looking at this going, oh, this was not very smart. It's now 8 o'clock at night. I've got to drive 5-6 hours to get home so I can be there 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to need some coffee. And that's what I did. There have been 2 or 3 times where I've done this. Again, my objective is ensure this doesn't happen, right? Try to set my life up where this doesn't happen. Every once in a while, there might be circumstances that necessitate that kind of a situation. Now, if I wasn't driving, I'd have said, okay, I'll sleep. I'll sleep in the car. It's not my problem, right? Problem was I was the one piloting and needed to be awake. But we want to be clear. That's what excess protein is doing for you. Now, one more thing. The same guy that was resigning in this last story, when he came to work for me, he was an old friend of mine. When he came, he was a naturopathic doctor, and we had, as we do now, all you volunteers have been in the kitchen, right? We got tons of fruit in the kitchen, tons of leaves in the kitchen. We eat from that. We serve our clients from that. It's all the same. And, he had 3 meals a day. He had his share of that. But he said, I also want 2 cases of bananas per week. That's 80 pounds of bananas on top of 3 meals a day. How does anybody eat 80 pounds of bananas on top of 3 meals a day? That's more than 11 pounds of bananas per day on top of 3 meals a day. How do you eat that much? Anyone? You don't. You blend it. You put it in a blender with some water and you drink it down, because when you do that, you get it into the stomach before the body says, no, I don't want any more of this. You try to eat that much, your body would say, nope, I'm done. Right? The satiety mechanism kicks in and says, I've had enough. But you can drink it down really quickly. Now, here's the thing. He and I went raw at the same time. We didn't know each other. We met each other maybe 6 months, a year later, and we're like, that's when I went raw. We were at the same time, same length of time. He came to work for me. We each had our own separate bedrooms, but we shared a bathroom. Okay? He was sick every single month he worked for me. He worked for me for more than a year. He was sick every month. I haven't been sick in over 30 years. Not then, not now. He was sick all the time. The only difference between his diet and my diet was that he was eating 2 to 3 times as many calories as I was. Okay? Including a lot more protein. Why was he doing that? Why do you think he was doing that? What was he after? Think about what a lot of American guys are after.
Muscle.
He wanted to have the biggest physique possible. Okay, he worked out hours a day, and he was eating, way overeating. And if you want to build an unnaturally large physique, you're going to have to overeat. Okay, if you want to build an unnaturally large physique, just be clear, an unnaturally large physique means you die sooner. Okay, so we all have different sized bodies. Okay, there's no right size. Jay is a big guy. How tall are you? Like 7'2"?
6'4".
8'9"? 6'4". Okay, 6'4", and pretty good sized frame. He's big, right? Big beefy guy. I've got a tiny little frame. For me to try to pack on that much muscle, it would take a lot of work and a lot of excess calories. Not natural for my body. This might be easy for you, completely unnatural for me. Okay, probably not going to happen for Sarah either, right? Who's quite a bit smaller than I am, right? We're all different. Okay, what we want, what I realized a long time ago was I want to do what's going to be healthy for me, because I lost my health and I wanted it back, and that was the most important thing. I once temporarily, I spent about 6-8 months in Virginia Beach, Virginia, and I shared a house with 2 guys, the owner's son and a young man who was maybe 23, who was pumping iron every day, and drinking smoothies. And I'm like, what's all that about? He's like, to get laid. I'm like, okay, fair enough. I said, are you really that interested in women who are only interested because you have big muscles? He's like, yep. Okay, fair enough. I'm not, right? I mean, I'm interested in women who see more than just the size of my muscles, right? you might want to get clear about what's most important to you. Okay? Of course we all want to look good, but should we all be trying to fit the same standard, even though we all have different size frames and different bodies? Does that make any sense? Of course not. Ultimately, we want to be healthy. This isn't an excuse to be obese. Some people say, well, I want to be healthy I want to be happy with myself how I am. Like, yeah, well, I mean, how you are is a recipe for heart disease and, joint failure and all kinds of other issues. Does that really make sense? I mean, yes, be happy and love yourself, which means you make healthy choices, right? Part of loving yourself is actually making choices that support your body. So I want to support my body in being as healthy as possible, not in trying to achieve some particular goal. I'm probably not going to look like Jay. Okay? It's not going to happen. Okay? It's not going to happen for most of us here. I hope you're all okay with that. Don't try to achieve something that's not really going to be healthy for you. Okay? Aside from that, there'd be no reason to overeat on protein or overeat in general. Okay? Unless you're trying to create something unnatural. I understand if you want to be a sumo wrestler, yeah, you're going to have to eat like 10 times a day. Okay, and I don't really know the statistics. My guess is you probably don't see a lot of 90-year-old sumo wrestlers. My guess is they're probably dead by the time they're in their 60s, because there's a limit to what the human heart can take. You do that for so long, it's not going to work very well. Okay, so let's be clear that like every other species, we have a natural diet. Now, but is it possible to get everything we need living on fruit and salad? It absolutely is. There's no question about it. And although it might be tempting sometimes to think, yeah, but if I eat this specific thing, a superfood, whatever, I can get more of that stuff that's good for me. Is that helpful to us? It's actually not. And there's a couple reasons why. First of all, our bodies have to work to outprocess anything we don't need. So if we consume more than we need of something, we're actually creating unnecessary additional work for the body. That's not useful. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay? There's another problem. If we're consuming an unnaturally concentrated source of something, our body becomes dependent on that source and ceases to effectively get what it needs from what we're actually intended to be consuming. In other words, we become dependent. Okay? And this is simple, basic science, and yet a lot of people are completely in denial about this. So actually, I remember once I was watching a video, I think, on YouTube. This is years ago, and up popped an ad for, might have been on a web page, but it was for a hormone supplement for bodybuilders. So these are typically male hormones that help you develop unnaturally large muscles. And I read through this, and it was interesting. I was like, oh, this is refreshing. They're telling the truth. It actually said, don't use this supplement every day. Why not? Because the male body, which should be making these hormones, will stop making them. Now you're dependent on the substance, on a natural substance. Okay? Anyone want to become dependent on some substance you have to buy? No, thank you. Okay? There's no reason to do that. So the best we can do, and I found over and over again. I have worked with thousands and thousands of people, and if you go watch one of my videos talking about why not to drink smoothies, etc., you'll see comments from people saying, "Thank you so much. I watched this, I changed, or you coached me, I changed, I gave them up. I feel so much better now." You will feel better. Okay? When we eat food, as we're chewing the food, our body is actually taking a measure of what's present on the tongue and sending that information to the brain, which then prepares your digestive tract for whatever's coming. When you put it in a blender and blend it up and drink it, your body doesn't have a chance to do that. And so it gets to the belly, but it's better digested, right? Because people have said, oh, the blender pre-digests it. No, it doesn't. Digesting it means bringing it down to the cellular level. The blender can't do that. We don't know that it's not digested. Let's talk about green smoothies, right? You eat salad. How many of you have ever passed a piece of lettuce in your stool? You know, right? And if it happened here, what did I say to you? You didn't chew more. Because if there's a piece of lettuce in your stool, you didn't chew that piece up. If you chewed it completely, you couldn't see a whole piece of lettuce, right? A little piece of lettuce. So, but when we drink smoothies and everything is already been chewed up by the machine in little pieces, we're not going to see a piece of anything. We don't know it's not well digested, but it's not. Because we're not starting the process of digestion in the mouth, which only happens when we chew the food, and we're not letting the body know what's coming in time to prepare the stomach for what's coming. Okay? So like every other species, the best we can do, and of course, let me be absolutely clear in case anyone's not clear about this. As I said at the beginning, this is my opinion. It is based on a lot of experience, but it's my opinion. The best we can do is to eat the whole, perfect, organic, ripe, natural foods for our bodies. Primarily juicy fruits, right? Mono meals of juicy fruits and simple green salads. Now, why mono meals? Now, and by the way, I kind of hate to even have this conversation here now because we've got 21 meals together and 60 different fruits. So how do you can't just do mono meals if you want to try everything. I'm not going to be doing only mono meals here. It's not going to work. It's what I do most of the time, though. It's what I've done now for nearly 30 years. It's what works best. Okay? Read primatologist research. What they'll tell you, the chimpanzee bonobo, the chimpanzee or the bonobo. I don't mean to say they're the same. They're not. The chimpanzee or the bonobo has about 75 different foods available to it over the course of the year. That's plenty of different things they could be eating, right? Many of those things are available at the same time. When they look at their stool that they leave on the ground, there's 1 or 2 substances in it at a time. That's it. Because they eat one food at a time. They might have 2 meals worth of, or sometimes they'll eat some leaves with their fruit. But that's it. That's it. I mean, yeah, Christmas, holidays, they might go out and make a fruit salad for the whole family. Okay? Of course, that's different. That's an exception. Big parties, right? But no, I mean, day to day, they're eating one food at a time. Okay? We're going to do the best doing the same thing. We're going to get the best results doing the same thing. So, it's tempting for many people to think, well, how can I improve on this? Or am I going to improve on it with fermented foods? I don't think so. How many of you have bitten into a fermented mango, pineapple, anything? What do you do? Spit it out. That's our natural response. That's what the body is saying, no, thank you. I don't want that.
It's overly fermented. It's too strong, of course.
Well,
Alcohol level goes up.
alcohol, you're creating alcohol by fermentation. But I would suggest that we don't really ever need fermented foods. Okay? And again, I get you may not all agree with me. This may not be a popular opinion, but I'm going to tell you, it's worked best for every single person. A client of mine's been willing to do it. Okay? A few years ago, when I first moved to Costa Rica, I rented a space temporarily at a retreat. I'd lost my place in Panama. That's a whole other story. I won't get into that right now. But I needed space temporarily, and I rented space at a retreat center. And the owners there, who still call themselves raw vegan, even though they eat animal products every day and cook food every day, go figure, they were regularly making sauerkraut, raw sauerkraut. And they said, help yourself. So I tried some. And I'll tell you, at first, my body went, oh, that's an exciting flavor. That's what happens. We're stimulating the taste buds because they're much stronger flavors than we're used to. And that's what happens anytime we're using spices for these fermented, things were not part of our natural dietary. The taste buds go, wow, that's exciting. Give me more of that. Here's the problem, though. If you keep eating that stuff, it takes very little time before we have a new normal. And now you need that level of excitement to enjoy the process of eating it all. Regular foods no longer do much for you because your taste buds are used to being excited this way. They're called excitotoxins. Okay? So I tried their sauerkraut. My mouth went, wow, that's good. And the next day my body said, nah, it wasn't actually that good. Don't do that. Okay? Give me the watermelon, give me the pineapple, give me the mangoes, just that. That's what's best. Okay, that's what's going to be best. I guarantee you, if you're willing to try it, you're going to find the same thing. So now one of the things that happens, one of the things people say is, yeah, but don't you get bored? Okay, don't you get bored eating the same stuff over and over again? And it's true, until now, almost 14 years living in Central America. If you travel through Panama and Costa Rica, you will find that most of the markets have watermelon, bananas, pineapples, mangoes, depending on time of year, maybe 5 or 6 fruits. That's about it. Because people here think that fruit is for pigs. Like they like it and they'll have a little bit, but they don't think of it as food. It's not that different in the U.S. Most of the people probably think, well, you could have an apple for dessert, but you can't live on apples, right? That's what they think here too. Okay? But here it's crazy because you can grow thousands of kinds of fruit. Everyone could easily support themselves by growing fruit in their front yard, and yet they're spending money buying rice and beans and dead animals and getting sick as a result of it. Okay? It's crazy, and yet, they don't realize it. And so they don't sell that much at the markets. And so for years I've been living on these same, now, every once in a while we will have some rambutans. It's a short season. We'll have things come and go. But it's the same staple foods over and over again. Don't I get bored? You know what happens for me? Almost every day when I sit down to have breakfast at 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, usually, I'll take a bite of whatever it is I'm eating and I'll go, wow, this is the most delicious thing I've ever eaten. It might not, sometimes you had a watermelon yesterday, which wasn't that good, right? What I'll do is I'll compost it and get another one. And you're welcome to do the same thing, okay? Don't eat anything that's not good. We got plenty of fruit. Don't worry about that. Throw it away. Get something that tastes good to you, okay? But if it's a good watermelon, it's a good watermelon. I'm going, wow, this is amazing. My body is like so happy with this. And then 4 or 5 hours later, I'll have something else. My body goes, wow, this is the most amazing thing I've ever eaten. And I have the same experience over and over again. And I don't get bored. And it occurred to me that most people, me too, for all those previous years of my life until 27 years ago, I was eating the same 10 or 12 things over and over. The same things. I go to the store and buy the same exact things every time. It was never formulaic for me like it's Tuesday, I'll have this. But every week it was the same 5 or 6 dinners every week for years. It's no different now, except that now I'm living on things that actually are good for me. Instead of making me sick, they're allowing my body to become healthier every single day. That's the only difference, okay? I never get bored. And of course, we're in the process of creating a much different paradigm, just like you're doing down in Ecuador, where, we now have, as you probably have already heard, like 110 varieties of fruit planted on site. And it may be a few more years, but, in 10 years, imagine at any given time you might have 10 or 12 things you can go pick off the plant and eat. Okay, incredible, right? Again, the problem I'm going to have then is like the problem I have this week. It's like, I'm only eating 14 times a week. How do I decide? I'm not sure. That's going to be a problem. I'm not sure what I'm going to do. That's a good problem. It's a good problem. Overabundance. Okay, that's what we want.